Hey. Woo. Welcome to the stream. Yes. Okay, mute that. There, that's better. How's that? Hey, welcome, Phoenix. Glad you could make it back. We have 4 viewers. 4 viewers. That's really exciting. Well, hopefully, if you're not able to use the chat, because I did some troubleshooting with folks after Sunday, and for those of you that are having trouble using the chat, you may need to create a Twitch account, which is free, and it's a good thing because it will allow you to also follow this channel and be notified when I go live. So anyway, welcome in. If you just want to lurk and not participate in the chat, by all means, very much welcome. So, and by virtue of there not being all that many of us, you get to decide what you want to ask questions about and see. So that'll be cool. So what I thought we would do today is we're trying to get to a place where we can do where we can find a book, a family book. And I happen to know, because the tree that we've been working on is one that I have already built elsewhere. It's like those cooking shows where they say, and now here's the one I made earlier coming straight out of the oven. Very much like that. And I happen to know that in the Hammond tree that we started researching together on Sunday, there is an ancestor that we're going to get to in a very close generation who has a family book written about them. So I thought what we would do is jump into the tree now and build our way back to that person, and then we will go over and take a look at their book. I'll show you how we can find that book, and I'll show you what websites you can find it on that are free, and then what can we learn from paging through that book, because I'll be honest, I haven't looked at it in ages. I don't remember what it says, so we'll be sort of rediscovering it together. Woo! So what we want to do, this thing keeps coming up just like last time. There we go. So we're going to dive into, why does it think that's the home person? Let's go do our settings and just make sure that we have the right home person in this tree. Home person? Nope. Home person in this tree is Harry Harvard. That's what we did. Okay, great. Why do we care? Because if we go to the profile of somebody like Harry's father, Eugene, it will tell us how that person is related. Oh no, we're doing this again. Please go away. It will tell us how that person is related to the one that I've designated as me in that tree. Since the trees that we are building on stream do not have living people in them, the home person and the me in this tree is my grandfather, Harry Hammond, who passed away in 1976. And so this is saying, how are these people related to Harry? If I want to know how they're related to me, I tack on the extra 2 generations. And of course, I can click on that and it'll show. This becomes more interesting when we get further back. Cool, cool. Okay, so, yeah, we'll do that. There we go. So we started out in the tree and we want to work our way back to find the person who has the book written about them, which is this person right here on the tree. It's Eugene Hammond's mother, which means we need to do a little bit of work to get Eugene, and let's see if we can find out together using our free trial on Ancestry.com. What can we learn about Eugene, and can we find out who his mother was? And can we get that to tell us about the book that's written about her family? So let's do that. While I'm doing that, anytime you have questions, go for it. I can redirect. The beauty of doing this live is that I don't have a firm plan on what we need to do today. So if there's something that you want to ask about or that you want to look at, let me know, because I'm up for it. That's why we do live streams and not pre-recorded YouTubes. If I cared a lot about preserving my content, I could pre-record it. I don't have to let you chat. So anyway, coolness. I'm trying to get the thing to show me how. Oh, okay. Yeah, I want to know. There we go. I got my viewer count where I can see it. Got it. Okay, let's start by looking at what kind of hints we have for Eugene Hammond. Actually, let's start by recapping where we were last time. We focused a lot last time on various. Yeah, we're going to need to do this. Various records for. I really did try offline to figure out how to shut off that helpful hint box. I have so far failed. If you are an ancestry expert and you figure it out, let me know. Okay. We started with Harry Harvard Hammond, and we were able to find records. We knew very little about him and his origins. One of the things we'll uncover as we go through all of this is that we're going to get lots of helpful hints from my other tree, from the fact that I've already done a lot of this research, and in fact from other websites that I have populated with the information that I've learned about Harry Hammond. So we found the Find a Grave record that I made, and we may find something like the wiki tree record that I made. I think the ones I've made for the Hammond family are not great. Might be a thing we would work on. So last time we had some of his death records, and then we had found him in the census in 1900 and in New York State in 1905, and we did some puzzling out to figure out if those were him. What we want to do is and because we found Harry's sister Mabel, and then we found Mabel's death record, we uncovered that the maiden name of Harry's mother is Wilcox. So she is Ella H. Wilcox. To this day, I don't know what the H stands for. I have not yet found it. So what we would like to do is try to find more information and a better information about Harry's parents. And the best way to do that and make sure that we don't know very much about them right now. All we really know is birth date. We know rough birth date from the census. This is kind of all we have on our guy Eugene here. I swear. Maybe if I just, no? Okay. All right. Okay. Our guy Eugene here we have from the 1900 and 1905 census. When he was in his 40s, we want to see if we can find more information about him. We also want to be confident that it's the right guy. And at the moment, the way that we have to do that is that we would like to find a Eugene Hammond who has a son, Harry, daughter, Mabel, wife, Ella. Some combination of those folks. That's how we're going to be confident that we have the right Eugene Hammond. There could be more than one. I happen to know for a fact that at least two have existed in history because my dad is one of them. So let's take a look at what kind of hints do we have for Eugene Hammond. I'm going to ignore ancestry member trees. I always ignore ancestry member trees. In fact, it's a good time for me to show you the how. I think we can still go turn them off, and I want to go do that. Yes. Okay, don't display tree hints. Ancestor hints, yes. Oh, don't display member tree hints. It already says that. Notifications. I have not set these settings in a long time. Notifications. Family trees. Oh, yeah. Ah, yes. I don't want email. Thank you. Thank you. Unsubscribe all. I don't want emails. Okay. Interesting. So it's already saying that it's not displaying member tree hints, which it's not popping them up on that tree, but it's showing them in the ancestor hints. Yeah, yes. Applications. Okay. All right, fine. That is interesting. Okay. All right, well, then we'll go back to the tree. So I have on my other trees, there is a way of making those ancestry, those hints from other people's trees. On my other account, they don't show up at all. And they do here, so that is interesting. This is so broken, and it's so annoying. Okay. Oh, look, they're gone. Well, all right then. Fine. I did it. It was magic. I didn't change the setting. It was okay. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. So what we know right now about Eugene Hammond is we believe he was born in Pennsylvania. We have that from the federal census in 1900. We believe he married Ella around 1874, also from the 1900 census. We can remind ourselves that that's how we know that fact by clicking on this fact, and it will actually tell us which source it comes from. And then we know that he lived in New York. However, we also know that the two of his children that we know about, both of their records say that they were born in Iowa. I hadn't found it super common for people to migrate from the West back to the East, but there you are. So we now know that around this time, and look at how helpful this timeline is, right? That's not something we entered by hand. It's being provided for us automatically, which is pretty neat. So we have now that when he was about 29 years old, he must have been, give or take, right? He must have been living in Iowa around that time. We know at least Ella was in Iowa, but we have reason to think that probably Ella and Eugene were together. So now we know when we go into hints that hints that will be interesting to us are going to be any of them that place him in Iowa. The hints here aren't in any particular order, so we're just going to scroll through until we find the ones that look interesting. So here's a big deal. We've got the New York Death Index. When I first started researching him, this one hadn't come online yet. So here it is. That is super exciting because we have Eugene Hammond in Buffalo, New York. Are we 100% certain that this is him? It doesn't have any additional information other than Buffalo. Is it possible there's another Eugene in Buffalo at that time? Yeah, possible. Do we know he died in 1929? Not based on what we've seen yet. So I'm going to wait. I'm just going to wait. It's not going anywhere. I'm just going to leave it. But what I'd like to do is try to carry us back to the 1885-1888 time frame and see if we can find our guy Eugene in Iowa. Oh, look, it's the 1885 census in Iowa. So here he is. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Iowa, 1885, and here we have an E.A. Hammond. Viewers from last time will recall that 1900 census record with its many handwriting problems had him listed as EA, and we think E something. We thought it might be an A. So this is interesting because this is another EA. And it's 1855 in Pennsylvania, 1885 in Iowa. Super interesting. Looks real possible. It's not telling us anything about the household. So let's see if we can find anything about the household. Oh, hello. It's the household. So here we have EA married to an Ella. Ella's birth date is 1856. It means she's 1 year. I'm really bad at math in my head. But what I do know is that it means she's about a year younger than he is. And here she's about a year younger than he is. So this is looking really good. If I click through to Ella, is it going to tell me she was born in Wisconsin? Boom. She was born in Wisconsin. That feels like enough for me to say that this is the same couple. I feel pretty good about this. And what's interesting is we've got all new people in their household that we didn't have before. We've got an Irving, a Canewell, and an Ellie. Okay. You can just judge by the ages. It seems real plausible that these would be EA's parents. That seems really likely. And that this is another one of their children who isn't in New York by the time they get to New York, but would have been grown by the time they get to New York. So plausible. That's interesting. So let's go back. I like this. I want to look around in the other hints and see if I find anything else that I like. But I like it. Okay. Oh, we're going to be some days Ancestry is slow. I don't think it's my computer. I think it's Ancestry. My computer's normally pretty good. There we go. All right. We like this record. We may attach it. I'm going to skip. This is interesting because I don't think this is the same guy, but we'll come back to that. Here we have another one, the 1880. Remember, we're looking 85, 88 is the time frame that we know because of the two other children. 1880, we have Eugene, Ella, H. Hammond, and Emily Hammond. Remember, the other one said Canewell and Ellie. Okay. Children Irving. We had an Irving. It was spelled different, but it was Irving. Okay, that looks interesting. And these are all coming in this township of Beaver in Butler County in Iowa. 1870. We've got this. What is that? I don't even know what that name is, but somebody Hammond and Emily Hammond. That all is very interesting. Here's another record for the death of their daughter Mabel, who was Mabel McKenna. That reinforces that maiden name Ella. Oh, wait, look at that. Eugene A. Hammond. We have Eugene A. Hammond. That looks really good. Eugene and Ella in 1920 in Buffalo. Great. Now, what is the deal with it? Oh, look what we found. We have Adelbert E. E.A., Adelbert E. E.A. Huh. Crazy. Whoa, look what we found. Remember their marriage is in 1874. 1874 in Wisconsin. The Wisconsin Marriage Index does a weird thing. It only indexes the grooms and the bride separately. They're indexed separately. It doesn't have the other party's name on here. We like that. That looks super interesting. So a lot of these records for Eugene look really good, is the conclusion here. So where do we start? Well, why don't we start up here with the one that was the best looking, really, which was this one. This 1885 with the household. We've got EA matches Eugene, who we thought might have had an A in his name in the 1900 census. We've got Ella. It's in Iowa. We think he's living there because he's got 2 children born around that time. We've got Ella, the spouse, and Ella's born in Wisconsin, and that matches what we knew for Ella. Why don't we go with that, and then let's see what kind of magic happens. All right, 1885. Oh, and this is one where we're going to have to add each one of these people individually. So that's okay. We're going to do that. So we've got Eugene, and it's perhaps Eugene A. So let's update his name. I don't want to change it to EA. I already know the Eugene part, but I want to add the A. So I'm doing that by hand, right? We're saying this is close enough. This is just a precision difference. Pennsylvania, just a different formatting of the location. 85 in Beaver Township, Butler County, Iowa, USA. I will sometimes check this by doing that place name autocomplete. Is going to tell me if that's a place that Ancestry recognizes, because sometimes they're older, out of date, etc. Hey, we have a new viewer. Welcome, viewer. Please do join us in the chat if you're so inclined. We're thrilled to take your questions. I'm plowing through this just to have something to say, but if you want to derail me and ask about something else, that's why we're live. So would love to have it. We're working on my Hammond family tree today, and we're building out some stuff that I already know the answers to in another window, but I'm going to show you kind of how we built it and how we made decisions about what we add to the tree. We're using my new shiny free trial Ancestry account. When it expires, we're going to have fun figuring out how to live without all the Ancestry resources. So, all right, we have accepted that hint. And so now if we go to facts, we think we know, right? We've got him listed in Iowa in 1885 when he's 30. But what about those other people? What we liked about that record was those other people. Well, let's do this because, hey, hi, new viewer. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the stream. Okay, what we want to try to do is, we liked about that record, remember that it had names in the household that were real similar to this 1880 census. And I happen to know a thing about the 1880 census, which is when we go to add it to the tree, we're going to get the other members of the household. It's going to give them to us for free. It didn't do that before. Oh, look what we have here, though. This is really neat. This is a different listing of the census. Remember, we saw Eugene just a minute ago, and I said, okay, well, that's probably parents. Here, we've actually got Eugene's presumably father. Yes, Eugene's father is actually the head of household. And so we've got Eugene's son, Ella, daughter-in-law, and then we've got 3 children in 1880. And they're not Irving, Mabel, and Harry. They are Irving, Cora, and Charlie. Super interesting. Okay, so let's see what happens if we add Eugene to the tree. Do we get the children? We do. We do. It is indexed really well. Look at that. We're going to get everything up and down. This is where we have to pause and breathe and make sure that we feel good about adding this record to this person, because we're about to add, what was that, 6 more people, 7 more people? And so we start to compound mistakes. If this turns out to be the wrong guy, I may have 5 or 6 people that I have to go delete out of the tree, and that's painful. So we're going to start here. We've got, now we liked the 1885, and then we also liked the 1880, and it was looking like some other stuff in the other in 1870 was lining up. So we feel okay about it. We're going to go ahead and take the leap of faith. We are going to go with the census as it's written gives his father's name as H. Turns out the Hammonds really liked their H's. So we're going to go with that. Remember that as we were scrolling through there, and this is going to be a thing, but maybe not a thing for today. So, thank you for your question about the Ancestry account. Give me just a second and I will answer that. Um, so this is my free trial Ancestry account. I created a free trial so that you could see what it looks like if you're not paying for an Ancestry account. I have the full all access membership to Ancestry, all the record collections, and all of their partner sites because I can. It is a hobby that I pay for. I really like it. I also pay for memberships at a couple of other sites. What I didn't want to do was one, show off a lot of copyrighted content that might get me in trouble on Twitch, but I also didn't want to show you a bunch of stuff as viewers that you might not be investing in. So we're going to figure out how to navigate that as we build out other trees and look at history further back, that kind of stuff. We'll talk about some of those differences, but I myself, for my personal use, I bought all of it. I love it. I have many quarrels with Ancestry. There are many things I wish they would do, but the resource availability and the functions that allow you to connect it into your tree, hands down, it's the best thing. But I wanted to make sure that as we do the stream, that all of you are learning things that you can do without having to lay out a bunch of cash. So we are focused right now on free trial. We're going to see whether it's worth keeping an Ancestry account after the free trial expires. I honestly don't know what we're going to find about that. And we are going to explore over the course of the stream, we're going to explore some of the other free sites. So Family Search now they have an amazing record collection. What they have lacked was the ability to tie it back to a tree so that you could keep track of all your records. Ancestry had that better. Family Search is doing a better job with that now. They have added some tree functionality that we can look at. All of that is free. And then there's also a site called WikiTree that I'm a huge fan of. That is my dog. That's my dog. WikiTree is another place where you can do free management of the tree. It doesn't itself have any of the resources to look up, but some of the and there's a lot of stuff on there that's very poorly researched and not well documented, but there's a lot of opportunity to find other sources. So yeah, there you go. So Family Search and WikiTree, I think, are great. So you are somewhat familiar with those. They're a little harder to use, right? They don't have nearly as many of the good things, but Family Search is working hard to catch up to Ancestry. There's also MyHeritage, which is another pay site that I've dabbled in. It wasn't as good as Ancestry, so I didn't bother. And I think there are some other options in the UK for people that are UK based. So I do find it worth paying for. However, I know that not everybody's got the resources to do it. So it is what it is. Okay, thank you for the question. That's good. That's the kind of live content we are going for here today. Thank you. Okay, so we are looking at Eugene Hammond's father. In a future stream, the saga of what on earth was Eugene Hammond's father's name will be interesting. We're going to focus on we are actually zooming in on Eugene Hammond's mother is where we are going today, and here she is. Oh, father, born in Vermont. Woo! We don't know what his first name was yet, but born in Vermont, migrated now in Iowa. Now we have Emily. Hammond being her married name, we know that probably wasn't her birth name. Therefore, we're going to just blank that out. I am, just for simplicity, I'm doing those as blank right now. I have some other tricks that I use when the tree gets really big and you have a lot of people whose maiden names you don't know. I have other tricks that I use for that. We'll get to them when we need them, but right now we don't need them. Now we have Ella. We had found in the last stream maiden name Wilcox, so she's here. Now we have the other children of Eugene and Ella. Very exciting. We have a son, Irving. We have daughter Cora, and we have a son, Charlie. We're going to have, there's a question that immediately comes up here because here they are as small children in the 1880 census. We can start to maybe be a little nervous because when we get to 1885, there's only Irving. These two are not listed. And now that I can see their ages, We know that by 1885, they weren't old enough to have moved out of the house on their own. So they are somewhere else, and that's usually not good. So we already have potentially some sad story here. You find that stuff pretty quickly when you're doing these trees back into the 1800s and wherever your ancestors may have come from. So, okay, we now have a bunch of stuff. Let's go see what we have. Let's go see what we have. Look at this. We have Eugene's father and his mother, Emily. We don't know what her name was. So let's go see if there's anything else we can learn about Emily. We don't have any hints because we don't have a name. We still have this pop-up box coming up. I wonder if I click that, will it go? Will you please go away? Okay. All right. So we don't have anything here. I guess we'll have to keep looking through Eugene and see if we can find out anything more about his mother in the course of finding his records. All right. Okay. Excellent. Now we're going to focus in, we're going to try to zero in on records that have his father and mother listed in them. So we were just on the 1880 census. We're going to look at the 1870 census, which is obviously 10 years back. And oh, look, this is cool, right? We're going to start to see if we have anybody else in the household or what else is going on there. So we've got Eugene Hammond at school. 1870 census is there's a sad fact about. So here's what's interesting about the federal census. Every one of them asked a different set of questions. So every 10 years, they kind of redesigned the census and they asked different things. In the last stream, we looked at the 1900 census, which was lots of questions. It asked a lot of things and collected a lot of data about people. 1880, we saw that we had the relationships of the members of the household. Here, we don't have those relationships, and in 1870, there's a reason for that. It wasn't asked. It was not a question that was asked on this census. We know what their occupation was, but we do not know in 1870 what the relationship was of a person in a household to the head of household. We just know they were in the household. So we no longer know that they were sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, parents, or as we saw in one of the New York censuses, we saw some unrelated boarders, had no connection to the family at all. That's sort of a question that we're going to have here in this census because we have a person who's not named Hammond in this Hammond census. We don't know why. We don't know why a Leonard Shumway is living in this house, and we don't know if it's just a hired hand, right? The occupation says, I'm going to put yes, there's a handwriting issue there, but let's say that they probably meant assists on farm, right? So we don't know anything more about them. So all we know about the family right now is this illegible name that probably starts with an H and Emily and Eugene. Great. We're going to go ahead and say yes. And when we go to add it to Eugene, Ancestry's done this interesting thing, which is that they've said, we're taking a while, based on whatever their reasons were, they're assuming that these are parents of Eugene, which we know from the other census that they are. So we're going to go ahead and add them. I am going to skip over this name thing because that handwriting, and we don't really know what it stands for. So, and we're not doing that guy today. So we're going to go ahead and grab them. All of this information is close enough, right? Birth date, close enough. Birthplace, Vermont, same. 1807 matches. Vermont, same. So we're going to go ahead and add them. Unfortunately, we haven't really learned anything new about Eugene's mother, Emily, because we already knew all that. We already knew she was born about that time. What else do we have? 1860. Oh, look. Gone back to 1860. Do we know anything more there? Whoa! Lots more Hammonds. That's pretty cool. Hey, there's Leonard again. We still don't know who he is or why he's there. We've got Mr. H, Emily, Eugene is in here. We've also got a Homer, a Morton, and a Cynthia. Okay. And we have no idea how any of them are related. No idea. Thank you, dog. So we're going to go ahead and add. And in this case, Ancestry is saying, We don't know. We don't know. All right. So, yeah, we don't know how they're related. We're just going to add this information for Eugene. Let's go and take, yeah, so the father's name, I am saving that because I know where that's going. And what we're going to find is that every one of the census records has it spelled differently and has it really difficult to read. And so puzzling through all of those is kind of a fun puzzle. I am maybe saving that for the Sunday stream. We go through and do the saga of what is this dude's name. I actually had a spreadsheet at one point keeping track of it because I didn't know either. And so puzzling that out is a pretty fun game. But what I'm trying to do is do a beeline to Emily and see if we can get to Emily so that we can look at her family book that I know exists. So that's why I'm setting aside. We're not, but I don't know. You're here. You're chatting. If you want to see me figure out the guy's name, I can do that. Ah, we have hints that have shown up for Emily. We have hints. Hang on. I'm going to yell at the dog for a second. He is. His big problem is that he's bored. Now, he does not find family. He, like everybody else in my immediate surroundings, does not find family history fascinating. That's why I'm here talking to you. Okay. We have hints for Emily. What do we get for Emily? I have no idea. Let's go find out what we get for her. Can we please make that go away? Okay. Here we go. Okay. Ooh, I should do a, I wonder if I can do a poll. No, I'll have to get the mods to do it. Okay. What? Whoa. Oh, look what we have. Well, we have a number of things, but the most significant thing that we have is this guy right here. Remember, I said I happen to know that Emily's family has a book. And something that Ancestry has done, but we don't have to rely on Ancestry for this one. Ancestry has collected a ton of the digitized versions of family books that were written long enough ago that they are out of copyright. They have those, and they've pulled them in, done some optical character recognition on the contents of the book. They're indexed, they're searchable, great, sure, fine. However, we don't have to use Ancestry for this. What I'm going to show you we can do is that we can bop out to archive.org. This thing, I knew about this because I knew that it was the Wayback Machine and it archives past websites. I did not know that they have all these books. They have so many books, so many books. They have a lot of books. So we are going to go in and see, can I search for the books here? Books. There's a lot of books. So, about 5 million books. Okay, we are going to look for over here. Let's go search for genealogy of the Shumway family. So we just copied and pasted it. See if we get it. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work or not. How we doing? Everybody's slow today. There we go. And here we are. Okay, we have the genealogy of the Shumway family in the U.S. You can play along at home. Hey, Bohunkus, welcome to the stream. We just found, through an ancestry hint, that a book exists for my ancestor, Emily, who married somebody Hammond, whose first name we have not puzzled out yet. And so we bopped over here to archive.org so that we could look at a free copy of this book. You can play along at home because archive.org is totally free. And so now that I'm in archive.org and I've got this book up and I can actually page through with their little reader, it's kind of cute. But something that I can do here is, because this is a Shumway family book, and yes, I have kind of skipped ahead because we didn't do anything to prove that Emily's maiden name was Shumway. Here's how we're going to find out. What we know is that her married name was Hammond. So why don't we search for Emily Hammond in the text of this book and see what we get. I've never done this search before. I don't know if it's going to work. I know what's in this book. I just haven't used the search feature. So let's see if we find anything. Okay, well, we found too many Emilys. Why don't we narrow it down? There's no particular reason. There's a reason lots of people might be named Emily, and so we've got a lot of hits that we don't need. But I wouldn't expect there necessarily to be Hammonds in this book because it's a Shumway book, unless somebody married a Hammond. So let's go find out what we find out. Well, now there's quite a few Hammonds, but that doesn't help me. All right, let's scroll down here. Anything. That's a lot of Hammonds. So I'm scrolling through the search results. There are a lot more Hammonds than I expected. And so now we want to figure out. There's Hammond of New Hartford, Iowa. He was born in 1806. Well. Let's go look at page 374. Let's zoom that in. Got a goodly number of hits here. Her name's back on the prior page. Fine, we'll look at the prior page. Oh, look. There it is. So this person, her name is Emily. Emily Orman Shumway is here. And if we turn the page, oh, wait. I'll put it on single page. That'll be easier to see. Because look, there she is. We're going to zoom in on that. We have a person. I was going to get a sound effect of the horn. Okay. Woo! Look, Emily Orman Shumway married to Honeywell Hammond of New Hartford, Iowa. Married 1833, sure. Born 1811 in Vermont. And also noteworthy. So we saw in the two census records, we had one that said about 1813. And we had one that said about 1812, which is much closer, especially because she was born in the second half of 1811. So depending on when the census was taken, it's very likely that her age would have pointed to a birth in 1812. So that looks pretty good. And then both of those census records for him were 1807. And so he's second half of 1806. I'm down with that. We had Emily's birthplace as being Vermont, which is also what this says. We like that. And this is the big news. Check this out. We have Henry Morton, Adelia Fitzland, Homer Alonzo, Mary Jane, and Adelbert Eugene Hammond. That is my great-grandfather, which means that she is my great-great-grandmother. And she has a whole book written about her. This is a really common format for these family books that were written. Oh, if we scroll down here, we can see that this book was written in 1909 by someone of the name of Shumway. I had no idea how many books like this had been written for how many families in this country. And what I say about it is that there was a period of time when it was fashionable, I think. There is a time period from about 1850, later 1800, post-war, right? Post-Civil War through to, probably between the Civil War and World War I, World War II. Loads of these books got written for loads of families, so that if you just Google some names of families or search them here on the Internet Archive, you can sometimes come up with these books because they're just out there. So we now have a family profile, and I'm going to show you some of the features that are really common in a genealogy style book like this. Each of the people in the book has a profile number. The numbering systems vary. They can be very different, but the people that are focused on in the book will have a profile number. And this is their little profile section. So this is Emily between this number and this next number. So next number is somebody else, another person in that family. They're going to give a quick sketch of what is known about this person. And then in this case, what it looks like is, because it's a book about Shumways, and different books do this differently, but because this is a book about Shumways, they are not going to trace the descent of these people who were the children of a daughter who didn't marry a Shumway. So their names are Hammond. They get listed here, which is great. They are now dead to us. They're not Shumways. We're not going to track them any further. So it doesn't have a profile number. If they were being, let me go up and see. Yes, here's what that looks like. Here's a person in this book who is male, and therefore when they got married and had children, their children were named Shumway. And the fact that they have numbers next to them is telling us that these people have a detailed profile later on in the book, and you can look them up by this number. But down here, she marries a Flint. These kids are dead to us. We're not going to profile them. So same kind of deal here, right? So we've got her profile number. We're not going to get anything any further down for her, but we have Emily, Honeywell, and Eugene, which is the group that we knew from the census. So we can start to now fill in this information on the family tree. If you are using some of the things that have been indexed by Ancestry, sometimes they will encourage you to dump some of this data into your tree, and they'll make it easy for you. In this case, since we went to an outside site, we're going to be typing things in by hand, which we can do, and I don't know that I'm going to rearrange all the windows here, but this is all now data that what I do on my desktop is I will split screen. I'll put the window, one browser over here, one browser over here, and I'll just copy the stuff over. And you may have to do it by hand. Or I can just kind of leave this here and see, is there a census record that's going to match pretty close to this? And I can slurp in the data from the census records. All right, so if we go back to here now, we also know, spoiler alert, right? We've now got at least what the book says was the full name of my great-great-grandfather, and that it was Honeywell, which is, I'm guessing that that's how it's pronounced. I don't actually know, but there it is, and that's really interesting and a weird name, right? And so now you can imagine how that managed to get butchered in a bunch of other different ways, right? We have here a death record naming Honeywell Hammond, Emily Shumway. Here's children Orville Homer Hammond. If we search back over here, Homer Alonzo doesn't match. So that's odd, but okay. So that's, it could be a whole other child that was born after that they didn't know about in the book, right? Sometimes somebody's born after the last date that they did the research on this family too. Anyway, so we have here, they're going to capture whatever all is known. So we know their birth dates. It means they didn't keep track of when these people passed away, or they may have still been living in 1909. We actually know that Eugene was still living in 1909 when the book was written, because we have his census records in Buffalo. We know he lived there. So we're pretty sure. I think we have him through 1905 now that I think of it. So we don't know that for sure, but but I think we have, we'll find him in 1910 or 20. Anyway, but we have now all this information, and now what we can do is we can't trace them any later in the tree because they end here. Hammonds are dead to us. Shumway is not researching Hammond. Hammonds, go write your own book. There's not a Hammond book yet. Might have to write one. But there's not a Hammond book. But there is, what we can do, however, is we have this really neat lineage that's going to tell us, because someone has researched the entire Shumway line, all we have to do is get back to her male Shumway ancestor. She's Shumway, so it's her father. And it's going to go back as far as they have in this book. It's going to take us back a long way. 5 more generations past her. Holy cow, mother lode, because somebody researched the entire ancestry of the Shumway family. Wow. Let's look at how we follow that back. So this is telling us that she was the daughter of Anson, he was then the son of John, son of John, son of Peter, son of Peter. As you can see, because names get repeated in generations, knowing which Anson he was, or which John this was, is it John the son of Dave, or is it John the son of John, or is it John the son of Robert? There's going to be a bunch of those. It's going to help us find those. And to find Emily, we need to know her profile number, because what we now want to do is search back in the book for where was she listed as a child of her father Anson. Now, if you were paying attention, I just scrolled to that a minute ago. But let me show you how you find it if it isn't already on the same page that you're on. We'll go to the search. We can try this. It may or may not work because they don't always have, the character recognition doesn't always work exactly. But let's see if we can find her profile number as a search result. Okay. There we go. Sure enough, we have her on page 73. The numbers match something. All right, the number's a little off, but here she is. Oh, look. So here's the one that we were just on, and look how it's highlighted. That's the one we were just on. And then here's the other occurrence of Emily, and it's right up here. We got lucky, it worked. And now we have her father's profile number. But this now tells us an interesting thing that we didn't know before, which is Emily, whose last name was Shumway, had a brother named Leonard Shumway. Eagle-eyed viewers will recall, if we go back here, let's go to our facts. Rocha, let's see, was he in 1880? No, he was not in 1880, but he was in, that's right, he was in, if he was in 1880, we would have known he was how he was related. He's in the census in 1870, living with his sister, Emily, in Iowa. They migrated to Iowa together. Leonard is living in the household. He was a farmhand, but he was also her brother. So last stream we talked about in 1900, they had some lodgers who were not necessarily related to the family. But in this case, we have a hired hand who is related to the family. The fact that he was living in the household wasn't enough for us to know that, but now we know that it's Leonard because we can also do something like we can compare this birth date that's in here, and that's going to tell us that that matches that guy in the census record. So Montreville here, that's his middle name, Leonard Montreville Shumway. How did they know that was his middle name? I don't know. I've never seen Emily Orman in any of the records either, only in this book. But they most likely, whoever was writing this book, gets this information, first of all, by talking to family who were probably living at the time. Lots of these people were still living. Not these people, but their children were still living and probably were interviewed for the book. We don't know who. Right, so here's Emily, the record that we found. We're scrolling back to find her listed with her parents. So now we have the names of both of Emily's parents, as well as a whole raft of her siblings. That's going to make it easier for us to find her and her family in all kinds of other records. So why don't we go put just some basics in the tree? Here's Emily. We can edit her, and she can be Emily Shumway. Whoop. And why not add her middle name? I have some feelings about middle names in genealogy, but because sometimes people attach middle names to people that didn't have middle names, but in this case, yeah, you know. And then we have, oh, can I copy paste this, you suppose? Let's copy. What's gonna happen? That doesn't always come across nicely, but it might. Not bad. There, Ancestry's fixing it. And she was born in Vermont. Do we know where in Vermont? Sometimes it'll say here at the top of her parents' profile, even if it didn't say down below, it may say here, children, all born in name of city. We may see that someplace else. Doesn't say here, so we don't know. We only know that further down this way, it said she was born in Vermont, and that census said. So we don't know anything more than that. Oh, but we do know their marriage date. That's exciting. Okay. Do we know her death date? Not from this. We sure don't. Okay. So Emily, it doesn't know when she died. Could she have been living in 1909 when the book was published? Maybe. Not very likely, but maybe. Okay, right. And then there are the additional children that we could add. Now, there it is. So we have now some more information about her. Why don't we do this by going out to the tree? Look at all this. So here's some other more. Ancestry is really, really, really aggressive with hints. Really aggressive with hints. But One of the nice things about hints is that they can save us some typing time, maybe, right? The bad thing about hints, and I will continue to hammer on this until I die, adding too many hints that you haven't really thoroughly vetted can cause you to have a lot of bad information in your tree that is very time consuming to tear out later and sucks. And so I have learned to be a little more cautious about what I allow to get in the tree in the first place. Now, if I'm doing this at home on a weekend and doing my research, I definitely want to go plug in all of Honeywell and Emily's children, and I want to plug in all of Emily's siblings because that's going to help me find more records for their parents. So, and it helps me validate when I'm looking at a household, am I looking at the right household? I don't know. We got another hour and a half to kill tonight, so I might want to take the time to type all those out, but I might not. So right now, I'm just going to focus on, let's go see. We know that what we want to do here is that we want to, let's scroll back up here. We're going to want to add Anson Shumway with these dates because that's what's in the book. I suppose I should say here, these books can be wrong. Of course they can be wrong. They were written by humans. They can have bogus data in it. And one of the very frustrating parts about these family books is that they don't, you will see right here, it doesn't tell me anything about how the author knows this information. It doesn't tell me anything about whether or not this information is accurate. So if I'm being really, really cautious, I might say, I don't want to put that exact birth date in. I don't want to put the exact birth date in for Anson because I don't know yet if that's going to turn out to be true. I don't know where they got it from. Maybe. Or if I've looked at the book and I say, it seems like it's pretty well researched, or if it has a nice bibliography, I just don't know which of those sources led to these facts. But if it seems like they knew what they were doing research-wise, maybe I take them. Maybe I don't care if it's off, if the birth date is off, give or take a few months, or it's got the wrong day. Maybe I don't care, right? It really is a question of, is it going to cause me problems in my research later if this stuff is wrong? Is it going to cause me something that I really need to go in and do these wholesale big corrections of stuff? Oh, hey, we just noticed why Leonard is in the 1870 census, but not the 1880 census. He passed away, which is plausible. He was 60 in 1870, so he had a good run, right? Okay, so we want to go add, so we know now that we are looking for Anson Shumway and Rachel Russell. So is Ancestry and its super generous hint system gonna save me any effort typing those names? Let's look. We have a potential father, review details. And what we have here matches, right? 10th of March, 1774. Click over 10th of March, 1774. 12th of October, 1847. Matches October 12th, 1847. Okay. And then here's what I like to do when I'm looking at this. Where is this information from? Records. Oh, are there any records attached to this person? Well, there are some. Now, if I click on that, do I get to see it? Yep. It's a marriage record for Anson and Rachel. Whoa! So we have that. So that's exciting. Then we have Anson Shumway in Vermont. Well, see, because look, this is Connecticut, New York. Look at this. We have some nice records. So what do we want to do? We want to add him. Do we want to add him to the tree? Sure. Sure. Let's save me some typing. I will add him to the tree. What do I get for doing that? Magic happened. He's in my tree now. Let's go look at his profile. They told me there were 4 records. They didn't give me any of those records. That's annoying, right? Boy. Okay, but boom, we have Anson Shumway. That's exciting. Oh, and this is Erie, New York. Remember how I said on the last stream that I like for counties to be formatted as counties. So I'm actually going to go use, they've got this autocorrect for locations. I'm going to use it to standardize that to say Erie County. I still don't know how we know. And is that from here? No. So I don't know how we know that fact. If I'm being really stingy, I could take it out. Take it out. Right. Fine. Taking it out. that's all I know. Oh, you know what? This book doesn't actually tell me that he's born in Connecticut either. But I wonder if it would tell me under, why don't we go look for his parents' record? 2084 is his profile. Is it going to tell me that he was born in Connecticut? I don't know. Let's go find out. So where I will use some of those free, super helpful things that Ancestry offers is it can be an easy way to mass copy over a bunch of people and dates that I have already verified or I can verify from some other source. If I want to add all 10 of these children, I've got Emily, so I'm going to add 9 new children. If I have a family tree somewhere that I can copy them from and I've looked at it and it matches this information, I might, just to save myself some typing, but I also might not. Sometimes I find that forcing myself to type it all by hand does cause me to have to think real hard about how bad I want this data and how much I like it. Do I think that it's legitimate enough? Am I really willing to do the work of typing it out? So sometimes I do, especially over on WikiTree, I kind of force myself to do a lot of things by hand, because if I don't feel strongly enough about it to want to type it, then maybe I can go do more research or other fun things instead. Okay, we have Anson's profile number on page 373. That's the page we're on here. I'll go back to page 366. The numbers don't quite match because reasons of it being digitized. Oh, look, here is Anson in his parents' household. And so that, again, is his date. This is they had children. What I'm looking for is, do I have any reason to think, does this book tell me that he was born in Mansfield, Connecticut? And so I'm looking to see, it might, oftentimes in the formatting of the book, it will do it right here where it began before the list of children. It might do it in the list with each of the individual children. In this case, it hasn't done that. And so I'm going to scroll up and just say, okay, here's his father, John Shumway, lived in Connecticut, ensign of a company in Mansfield, Connecticut. So that doesn't tell me that Anson was born in Mansfield, but it does tell me we're not way off on we're not in other states, right? If this was a profile of somebody who lived in Virginia, I would say, that doesn't seem likely. I might start to worry that record I found over on Ancestry might be for the wrong person, right? But what it means is I don't think we know yet that he was born in Mansfield, Connecticut, so I'm going to take that out. Sometimes I say, oh, I'll just leave it there. I'll come back to it later. I always forget. I'm always going to wander off on some other branch and forget. So for now, we're sticking with the profile of Anson as we saw it in the book. This is what we know from the book. We've copied that over. We also know that he married Rachel Russell. And did the book know what her birth information was? It didn't say. It doesn't tell us anything about them. It doesn't have the marriage record either. We got nothing. So we just know her name, Rachel Russell. Great. And we're going to say yes, and Emily is her child. So now we have both of Emily's parents listed. And Ancestry is helpfully offering us up some more hints. Remember, it thought that it had 4 historical records for Anson. Now it's telling us it has 6, which is nice. Aha! It's also saying, hey, I found him in the genealogy book. Yes, you did. So did we. Okay. Woo, 1840 census, handwriting, very challenging, but interesting because that other record thought he died in New York. This has him in New York. Potentially interesting. This, though, we like this a lot. This is a Vermont marriage record for Anson Shumway and Rachel Russell. We're going to start leaning on the fact that Anson Shumway, we think, is not a super common name. Yeah, sure enough. And I wanted to click through and say that book said Rachel Russell. This record said Rachel Russwell. That is, in fact, what it says. We don't know which one is right, but that's definitely what it says. So it's not a transcription error, right? It's not a simple transcription. It's not a typo. This is actually what it says. And then we've got, well, they've got their date of marriage, which is awesome. So let's put that in. Here's the other thing we can notice about that date of marriage is if we click back over, this is July 1807. If we click back over to, oh, interesting. Book thinks their first child was born in April of 1807. Sipping the tea there, y'all. Okay, good for them. Good for you. Also, this didn't know their marriage. Maybe she was born in 1808, and then July 1807 to April of 1808 makes a ton of sense, and then November 1809 makes a ton of sense. I might think, I don't have a record there, so we don't know, right? We'll go with this, but I'm a little sus of that. But obviously that sort of thing happened, and honestly, it wasn't. The records don't show us anything about it being a big scandal. It just has these dates that are real close together, and you're like, I see what you did there. So, all right, but let's go ahead and add this. Anson Shumway marries Rachel Russell in July of 1807 in Vermont. And we love Vermont because that's where we think Emily was born. So there it is. And we're going to auto-complete this. Come on, Ancestry, you can do it. You can do it. There it is. We're going to auto-correct this to the fully spelled out location in Vermont. And notice, too, I have to click outside the text box to get it to update. I have developed that habit over using a lot of Ancestry over the years, but it automatically updated the location. Same thing would happen if I had to correct the format of the date, because this fact is linked to both of them. So if I change it for one of them, it will change it for the other one. I'm going to save that to the tree, which is quite exciting. Dog also excited. So we now have a fact. We still have this pop-up. It's killing me. Okay. We have a fact and a source. We have a source for Anson. That's such good news. We like having sources. This column being empty makes me very sad. So we love having a real source. And it ties him to a place that we have a reason to believe he lived because we know that Emily was born there. So we're about that time. Really, puppy? So here we are. So let's see what else we know out of the book, right? This is worth mentioning, especially because the book tells us that he died in 1847, which is a super bummer of a time frame because we talked about how the federal census asked different questions in different years. One of the big markers of the time in the U.S. federal census is the 1850 census, because that is the first census that listed every individual in the household by their name. And when I say every individual, I mean obviously the not enslaved ones. We have a branch of my family where we will look at what slave records looked like in future streams. Right now, we are safely in non-slave holding territory. But when we think about how the families of free people were listed in the census, starting in 1850, the free people were all named in the census and listed as distinct individuals with whatever other information was asked about them. And it was a little bit in 1850 and a little more in 1860 and so forth, all the way up to the present day. The 1940 census is the most recent one that we can currently access. And all of those list free individuals by their names. Before 1850, in the 1840 census, and previously back to the first census in 1790, all of those listed the name of the head of household and then just numbers of how many people of various, sometimes by sex, sometimes by age group, and those categories changed every 10 years. So what this means is we can find records that list Anson as the head of household, assuming he was the head of a household, which he may have been. It's not going to tell us his age. It might tell us his age range. We're not going to find a census with Anson on it that also lists Rachel Shumway as his wife and lists Emily as their child, because they weren't enumerated by name. So that trick that we did with Harry to find his parents, Ella and Eugene, because they were in a family grouping that matched across several census, the trick we did with Eugene to find him living in his parents' household with Honeywell and Emily, that trick worked because all of the census records we looked at were after 1850. And we started to also get the details about how they were related to each other starting in 1880. But prior to 1850, and so sadly, because Anson died before the first one of those detailed census was taken, we're not going to get a listing by name that's going to confirm for us that these are him with his children. We're going to have to do a different trick, which is counting them up and figuring out which ones fit in which slots. Because what we're going to, I'll show you what we get. We've got this offer here of an 1840 census. I like to work backwards because we are going back from what we know. So we know about Emily existing, we know her age and where she was. We're starting with the latest census record we can get for him that's going to have these details in it. But this one is in New York, and we don't know yet that he was in New York. So we do think we have reason to know that he was in Dorset, Vermont, because that's where he was living when he married Rachel Russell. And we knew that that marriage record belonged to him because it matched the names in the book. Okay, so now we're pulling all of this stuff together. So I'm going to skip over 1840. Normally I would get the most recent, but I'm going to skip over it and go to 1830 here. And we're going to take a look at the census and see what we learn about it. So this is what I mean. We have the members of the household are listed in as a count of the people, and they're listed by age groups rather than by birth date. So various people have come up with some neat little helpers. Hang on a moment. I'm going to go see if I can deal with this dog. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back. Look what we have. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. Luke. Here he is. This, Mr. Profile Picture. This is the miscreant who's doing all the barking. He is used to being shoved in front of a video camera. He's going to chill out with me in here. Here we go. He feels real strongly that it's his supper time, and he is wrong. So it's not supper time, it's stream time. Okay, we're looking at Anson Shumway. So Anson, people have come up with different spreadsheets that you can use to kind of track like who shows up in which census, because what you want to do is, well, let's start with something really simple. We have total members of the household in 1830 as being 8. So if this is the family of Anson Shumway, and if his wife is still living, is his wife still living? Oldest female in the house, so oldest male in the house is age 50. That would work for Anson. The oldest female person in the house is under 19. So now we know, okay, so this is Anson, and has his wife passed away by him by this time? It looks like maybe she has. So then we have Anson and 7 children, maybe? Let's go see if Anson and 7 children would in 1830 would make any sense. Let's see if that's a thing. So we have Anson and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 children. But this one would also, and this one, and this, okay. This one was born and died in 1829. So we can omit him because John was deceased by then. by 1830, right? So he, if this is right, he would not be in the household. Okay. They would be in the household. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And Anson and his wife has passed away. So that's a lot of them. That's a lot of them. And that's more than what we have in that census because we only have him and 7 other people, children or whoever. Where might they have gone? Well, we can start to look at these 2 oldest children and say, in 1830, were they old enough to have moved out of the house and be living somewhere else? And in fact, a lot of them were, right? Now, I'm really bad at math in my head, so I'm going to go over to Google and go 1811. How old was Emily? Well, Emily was 19. And that's the oldest one. That's the oldest group, right? There's nobody older than Emily who's in that household. So that means most likely Harriet and Leonard. Oh, wait, no, Harriet's the oldest. She's the oldest female person. Harriet would have been 23. Too old. Harriet is, if those dates are right, Harriet's not in this household. But Emily could be, because she could be this person age 15 through 19 because she's 19. Okay, that could be Emily. We then have Leonard. Could Leonard be in this household? Leonard is 21. So can he be in this household? Is there a 21? There is one. He could be here, right? He could be 20 to 29. He's age 21. This could be him. Okay. All right. I'm working on that. That's working. Now we've got Emily, right? We said so. Harriet is not. Leonard could be. Emily could be. Judith is a year younger than Emily. So she's 18. But there's only one girl in this age range. So now it's either Judith or Emily, but not both. Because that's how old they are. Okay. Huldah. Oh, look. Huldah passed away. She's deceased by now. She is out of the picture. She's not in this household. Okay. Jerome, 1816. So he's 14? Watch me do an arithmetic. So embarrassing. There is a boy, age 14. Okay. So he could be in this household. That looks good so far. So notice that here's the important thing. We haven't broken it yet. We haven't found anything that's way off that we couldn't explain, but we do have questions, right? I would want to feel better about where Harriet is. I would want to know where's Emily and where's Judith, right? But we've gotten down to Jerome. Now we're at Olive. Olive's going to be 12 years old. Female 10 to 14. There are 2 of them. One of them could be Olive. That works. Mary Jane in 1820. So she's 10. That means 10 through 14. She could be the other one. That also works. And then we have Sally Maria, born in 1825. So she's 5 years old. Could she be? Yes, she could be. And now we're starting to get, oh, wait. No, 5 through 9. So she's maybe 5 through 9. There's another one under 5, and we don't know who that is. So there's a surplus person there as well. It looks good, right? It looks good. It looks really good. But there are definitely some questions about this record that we can't clearly answer. It's the possibility of another daughter. Now, if we accept that all of these years of birth could be give or take a year, right? We might start getting into like, oh wait, which exact month was it, and what age would they have exactly been? Is Mary Jane considered 9 or is she 10, right? Because she might be 9 because she was born late in the year, right? So we gotta look at like which one of those categories is they in. So we're not exactly sure of the whole household. The question is it close enough that we feel like this record is probably Anson Shumway? And another thing we could ask is, if we add this, is it creating a big mess? This is not going to add an additional 9 or 11 people to our tree. It's only going to add a record of where Anson Shumway was living in 1830. So there's actually a little bit less damage for it to do. So that's good. Do I need this record right now? No, I'm going to look at some other stuff. But that shows you kind of the difficulty and the thought process that we're doing when we're doing the 1830 census. What if we go look at 1840 and see if anything about that household is interesting, right? Does that household, there we go. How does this household fit with what we know about Anson Shumway? Because a couple of things that we want to do. Do we agree? Do we agree that that's an S? It's really challenging that this is only a first initial A if we don't have the full name. It's a location that we don't yet know that he lived, right? We may find that out later. But are there any other things we could do that would just obviously rule him completely out? Well, we've got Anson here. There's a person of the right age, right? There is a male in the household of the correct age. One of the easiest things you can do with these records for the older people is if there's just nobody in the house who's old enough to be them, you're done. You can move on. It might be their son, but it's not likely to be them. We have a male 20 to 29. Leonard would have been 31 by then, so he might be a little old for that. But were they being approximate, or could it be, could it be Jerome? Thanks, Phoenix. Good to see you. Uh, so could it be one of the other sons? We have the next male down. We have, is there another brother? Who could that? We don't know who that could be, right? So he was 14. He's going to be 24. We also start to get into one of the things that makes these really complicated is when the children start to marry and have their own children and live with their parents. That can cause a problem because now all you have are these numbers. You don't know where these youngest people came from or if they are even children of this family. It could be a boarder in the household who has a child that lives with them, right? You'll see that in if they had a servant who was a live-in member of the household and had a child, that could be somebody that has no connection to the family. You get back to these census years, and you don't know. I don't see anything that blows it up that makes me think it's absolutely not him. I do see, interestingly, that there is a female 60 to 69. She wasn't in the 1830 census. She is here. Did Anson remarry? I don't know. The book doesn't say he did, but the book might not know either. Anyway, so we have this record that might be him in New York. And the challenge now is that because we have reached the realm of census records where the parents and children are not named, nothing from his census is going to tell us about the household he lived in when he was a child, which means that trick we used to get parents off of the children's census records is not going to work for this guy because he isn't listed in the census unless he's a head of household, which means we don't have him at all when he was a child. We don't know where he was. So this is why the book is so incredibly helpful to us, because it is going to fill in this big gap that we have of we can no longer find him and his parents listed together in a census and use that to construct their tree. But we have a book. So if we go back to his records here, we've got him with 4 siblings, and it's going to tell us that he is the son of John Shumway. We've got some dates for John Shumway. And as we scroll down and read, and this is a much fuller bio, they know a lot more information about John Shumway than they gave us about Anson. Whole bunch of stuff about, look, daughter of the American Revolution. If you are a Caucasian person in America and your family's been here was here, any kind of, a lot of folks were patriots who served the revolution. So it's not actually all that difficult. I don't find it to be all that difficult to find. And what I get very excited about is you can find Revolutionary War records for African American people and show that they are also sons and daughters of the American Revolution. And in a lot of different capacities, and some of them are sad and some of them are less. And anyway, it's very exciting. But yay, look, I'm a daughter of a revolutionary patriot. Good for us. And as we scroll down in his whole bio, he settled in Dorset, Vermont. So now we know how did Anson get to Dorset, Vermont? Well, he went there probably with his father. And he was married to Judith Mills. So we now have 2 new names. We have a death date for, it looks like that's telling us it's the death date for Judith. Go us. We don't have, oh no, we have his birth and death up here. They're up here. Great. So we have John Shumway with these dates. And if we do that, let's go ahead and plug him in. This is going to offer us, yep, John Shumway. It's got a bunch more details that we didn't know from the book. 1738 to 1826. Does that match the book? This says 1829. So those don't agree. I will tend to keep whichever one I think has more evidence. And right now I don't have a whole lot of evidence beyond the book. Do I trust the book? Probably. Maybe. Those records, none of those records come from a source that gets me excited. Find a grave is entered by regular people like us. They are frequently wrong. These are just two different indexes of the same Find a Grave. And North America Family Histories probably refers to this book that we're looking at. So I'm not excited about any of those records right now. But do I want, so why don't I just say no to this? And yeah, I don't care about that hint. And I'm going to go ahead and add John Shumway by hand because it's just one person. It's not that complicated. So let's go here to where it says add father, and we're going to add John. It's giving me his last name for free. What did it say? 1738? 1738 to 1829. Just because I want to save on some typing, I'm going to go 1829 and just do the year for now, because I have a lot more I'm going to want to come back and do on John Shumway. So I'm just keeping it super simple. Oh, and we know from the book that John Shumway's wife was Judith Mills. Okay, Judith Mills. And we know her date of death was 1820. So let's go ahead and add her. Mills. Ding, 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 down to 1820. We might guess that she died in Vermont. If the family settled in Vermont, we might also guess that John Shumway died in Vermont. But let's see if maybe Ancestry wants to tell us that. Right? So let's go to John Shumway and see if any hints have come up. After you add a person, sometimes a bunch of stuff happens immediately in terms of hints. Sometimes it takes a little while. You might remember when we first added Emily, before we knew her name, at the beginning of today's stream, we added her in, and the first time I visited her profile page, there were no hints, and I assumed that it was because we didn't have her surname. But the second time I went back in this same session, just a few minutes later, we had a few hints for her. So it had been doing all of its work in the background and figured it out. Whoa, we got lots of hints for John Shumway. I wonder if they're any good. Let's take a look. So John Shumway, what do we know about him? And we'll recall from the book that he served, while we're waiting for that page to load, we'll just go read. He served, marched from Connecticut towns, ensign in a company from Mansfield, Connecticut. So in 1775, we think he was in Connecticut. Lots of service in the war, very interesting. And then at the close of the Revolutionary War, he settled in Dorset, Vermont. So whenever that was, 1780 something. Okay. Okay. We're going to skip over photos of gravestones. Those can be really interesting. You will notice a super annoying feature of Ancestry is that anytime anybody makes a copy of that photo and then uploads it again, it doesn't know that they're the same photo. So it's going to offer you the same photo so many times from all the different people who've ever saved it. It's very frustrating. We have a Find a Grave record. We've looked at Find a Grave before. That's going to probably point to this gravestone that we can see that people have pictures of. And that might be good information. Right? Find a Grave is entered by people like us. It is oftentimes entered as a transcription of a headstone that exists. That's oftentimes a good source. We have, look, we have a John Shumway in Dorset, Vermont, where the book tells us that he settled in 1790 after the close of the Revolutionary War, woo, and 1810. If we scroll down, do we have 1800? No. Okay, uh-oh. And we have another John Shumway in 1810. This is why I wish we could sort the hints. That's one of those annoyances about Ancestry. I have to remember that I saw 1810 before. This is a big flashing red light for me, because what that tells me is there were at least two, because this is likely not the same guy, right? Bennington County and Rutland County are different counties. I don't know how far apart they are. I will often go check that on a Google map. Actually, let's go do that. Bennington County, Vermont. We get the map up. This tells us where Bennington County was. So that's Dorset. This is the one we know he lived in. Dorset is here. We can just go to Dorset. So there's Dorset. But now let's look for, where's Rutland? The reason I look is, okay, and there's Rutland, and I realize now that I don't remember where the other one was. So what I want to do is actually I'm going to do driving directions. Dorset. How far apart are they? Pretty far. Pretty far. Pretty far for post-Revolutionary War times, right? So that's pretty far. They're not, I mean, nothing in Vermont is that far. It's Vermont. They're small. But that's pretty far. The reason I check that is because if they were in the same general area, or if the borders of the counties changed, I should probably check that. That might have happened in Vermont. It could be that somebody got recorded in the same census twice in two different locations. There are other people in my family that that's true about, because they were close enough and they had two households. And the census taker was over here on Tuesday and a different census taker was over here on Thursday, and they didn't know, and they counted them twice. That can happen. If the locations are pretty far apart, though, Pulteney is actually the city. Dorset to Pulteney, that was the one it was saying. That's what that census was saying. So we have, hang on, Pulteney. That's actually slightly less far, right? But still kind of far. 20 some miles through unimproved woods on horses. There's not probably a lot of road going on there. Vermont was not super developed at that time. Part of Vermont we're looking at is not super developed now. So that feels far to me, but that's just my gut check, right? I'm just looking to say, are they close enough together that might still be the same guy, even though it's in two different towns in the 1810 census. So that's could this be the same guy? This is John in Dorset, and down here we have John in Pulteney. We don't know, but what it tells me is there may be, or there could be, there could be two John Shumways. And I was already about to say, John's a pretty common name. So I wouldn't assume that if I find somebody named John Shumway, even somebody named John Shumway in Vermont, I wouldn't assume that that's our guy. I would want something more to go on. Now, the fact that he's in Dorset, the exact town that the book told us he lived in, I like that. That's pretty good. We still don't know for sure that he didn't have a son who might also be there. So there's a couple of other things that we just don't know for sure. So I'm going to skip over those census records for now because we have discovered something interesting. Here in the book, let's scroll up here for John Shumway. It gave us his birth date as July 29th, 1738. And all we know is that by 1775, he was in Connecticut, but it doesn't tell us where he was born. Should we scroll up? If we scroll up and look for his profile, he's right here. His father's household is right here. So here's our John. Let's go ahead and do 2074, because that'll highlight it. That'll just make it a little easier to see what I'm pointing at, if it works. So here we are, Shumway book. There we go. So this is John's profile, John Shumway, that we're looking at here. He is the son of John Shumway, and sure enough, here is his household. Here he is as a child of this family, and it says he's born on July 29th, 1738. We don't know exactly how the author of the book knows that, but we do see another interesting thing. John Jr.'s father, John, lived in Oxford, Massachusetts. Where's Oxford, Massachusetts? I don't know. Let's go look. I I don't know off the top of my head where Oxford, Mass is. I sometimes like to know those things. It is, scroll out, what part of Massachusetts is it in? Huh, it's part of Massachusetts. Well, okay, look, a lot of parts of Massachusetts are close to Connecticut, but this is part that's close to Connecticut, so that's kind of neat. So it's this part of Massachusetts. It's near Worcester. Shout out to my Worcester people. Okay, so the reason all of that is so interesting and caught my eye is that we have a town birth record in Oxford, Massachusetts for a John Shumway who was born the exact date that that book tells us that our guy was born. Let's go see what we have, because we have now bridged a gap thanks to this book. We have bridged a gap between what we can get out of a census in more recent times from our people, right? This is closer to us. We've got the census records, which kind of start to become hard to use around that 1840, right? Before 1850. That's a problem. But thanks to that book, it's gotten us a couple of generations back until we find, in our case, the mother lode is in New England, where New England kept, a lot of New England, not all of it, but a lot of New England kept really, really good vital records for all of their citizens, all of their freed citizens, right? Really, really good records for a lot of people in a lot of places. And this is an example of that. We have found a record, most likely a town record. In Massachusetts, these records were usually kept at the town level. Hello, puppy. And so if we scroll through here, and this is some kind of a compilation. How do we know that? Well, it's not a real-time record because they would have written them in straight chronological order and the names would all be interspersed. This is a grouping, if you look here, of all of the children of the Shumway family, which means somebody at some time did an extraction, probably, of the records that were kept in real time. So this is a reproduction. We're going to want to go back and try to find the actual records from the real time in Oxford to know where they got them from, just in case they transcribed something incorrectly. But this is probably the source that the book used to know what all the birth dates were for all of these particular children. So we have here John, son of John Shumway, and Mary, his wife, was born July 29th, 1738 in Oxford. Was Mary his wife? Let's go back and just see what the book says. Book says married Mary Dana. Okay, so that's our person. That is our person. So now we know that this is likely the correct birth record. Remember that I was conservative when I added and I only put the year. So when we go to save this record to John Shumway, we say, okay, yeah, this is going to be him. We know because the date matches exactly what was in the book. The book didn't tell us where he was born, but it did tell us that his father lived in Oxford. So we feel confident that this record in Oxford is going to be him. Oh, we got a forename. Come on, Ancestry. Up your game. There we go. Hello. Hungry puppy here. Don't worry, puppy. It's almost supper time. It's almost time. We're almost there. So there's Oxford. We're going to go ahead and add that in. And so this is where I have to try to remember to keep them straight, because we now have John the son. There's no evidence that he used the name Junior. I'm not going to add Junior unless I see evidence that he was called Junior in his lifetime. Come on, Ancestry, you can do it. So we just know that we have John the son. We're going to have a John Shumway, the father of John the son. And we're going to want to keep those straight. This one is John married to Judith. The other one is going to be John married to Mary. Married to Mary. I pronounce those two the same because I'm from the West Coast. Okay. Okay, so his father is John Shumway. We don't know anything about him right yet. I guess that's in the book. Well, okay, what does the book say? The book says 1713 to 1810. Okay. Oh, and it says he died in Oxford. So, okay, 1713. If he died in Oxford, there is a decent chance that there's going to be an Oxford record for that. Oxford, Worcester, Mass. Save that. So now we have his father, and then his mother is Mary Dana. Do we know anything about Mary Dana? Married Mary Dana She was born in 1721, died in 1809. 1721, wow. 1809. We don't know where. But if there's a record for her and it comes up and it says Oxford, I'm going to be not at all surprised. Oh, and we knew that they were married. Their marriage date. I didn't add the marriage date for John Jr. and Judith. Did I? Oh, wait. This is the wrong one. I don't want his marriage date. Oh, okay, we're just going to jump around a little bit. Let's go ahead and, do we have his? We don't know when he married Judith. All right, we don't know. But we do know when his father married Mary, 1737. We just got to put it on the right one of John. Oh, possible marriage record. Shall we look? Oh, look. This box is killing me. Okay, Massachusetts compiled marriage records. John Shumway married here. In the last stream I talked about sources I don't use. U.S. and international marriage records is one that I never ever use, even if I know it's right. I never use it because it is almost always bogus. And if it's right, it will be because somebody copied a record that exists somewhere else. So I don't need it. So I'm going to go ahead and ignore it. It's not giving me anything valuable there. I do not like that record. Oliver Shumway, this is not the same guy at all. But John Shumway, May 19th, 1737. Is that right? May 19th, 1737. Yes. So that's an Oxford town marriage record. Married, Mary Dana. Yes, I would like to save that to the tree. Oh, look. May 19th, 1737 in Oxford. Something that you'll catch in Massachusetts marriage records is, oh, hey! Oh, I get to click done. Do you suppose that box is going to go away now? That box might go away. I'm going to click done. Yes. I am mad at that box. Okay. Oh, I do have, I have feedback. Okay, fine. I'm going to go do the feedback later. Okay. Yes. Continue building tree. Yes, I would like to continue building tree. Yes, I would. Okay, we are at, it has brought us back here. And we want to go up, right? It's not showing us all the people. So we want to click that and go up. Look at this beautiful thing that we now have. We have got a lot of generations back from Mr. Eugene Hammond, who is here, that guy is my great-grandfather. And so we now have his mother and her father and her grandfather and her great-grandfather, all this way back to this Shumway family. And we have hit the mother lode because we have hit colonial Massachusetts, where records in many but not all places are plentiful. We are going to find lots and lots of those Massachusetts town records that are going to help us verify a ton of stuff. And we will be able to build out a tree really quickly with all of that stuff. Here's another copy of the Massachusetts marriage. Do I want to add it? I like having lots of sources, but it doesn't tell us anything new that we didn't already know, right? Oh, what's kind of nice, though, is it does give us this information. This is the kind of thing that we may want to go use when we go start digging around at Family Search, because it's actually going to give us the Family Search film number. We'll do that on another stream, I think, before we go. We're not going to go off and chase squirrels today too bad. We're going to stay focused on what we know from this book, but we're adding some sources. Why don't we go back and see? We're not going to go add all the siblings right now because that's going to be handwork that I don't want to do. Maybe I'll do that between streams and we can come in and see the cake I baked in the last session, right? But we do have lots more children here that there are probably decent records for. Now, who is John's parent? Oh, look, John is descended from Peter, who is descended from Peter. We can do that. Why don't we just go ahead and plug in some placeholders? We don't know who the mothers were. We don't know any dates for them, but we do know that there is a Peter here. And then, if I center his family tree, we got a Peter Shumway here. This just gives us a place to put some more of that information out of the book. So we go here. Okay. Profile number 12. If I search the number 12 like I did for some of those other profile numbers, I'm not going to like that experience because the number 12 is going to show up in a lot of places, a lot of dates and stuff. I'm not going to enjoy that. If I search for John Shumway, I'm not going to like that experience either. However, what matters here a lot that's quite helpful is that we can kind of see that these numbers were assigned in numeric order. John Shumway means he is the 12th person to show up in this book, which means the fastest path to finding his family listing, him as a child in Peter's household, is almost certainly to go back to the very beginning of the book and just read the book. So let's do that because we can. Yeah, see, you can also kind of navigate through the book by looking at other people's profile numbers. Oh, okay, so here, look, we have found the will of Peter Shumway. This is second. Peter Shumway the second. That's actually the guy we want. Oh, looky. That's the guy we want, who is the father of our John Senior Shumway. Will of Peter Shumway the second is of interest because it contains the names of his children. Does it now? Well, let's go see. Beloved wife Mary Shumway. Eldest son Oliver Shumway. Didn't we see a census for Oliver Shumway in Vermont? Different generation. Probably not the same. Probably not. I don't know. David, Samuel, John. Sure, he had a son. Okay, alert the media. He had a son John, but we already knew that we are looking for John, the son of Peter, who is the son of Peter. So if it's saying Peter the second, who has a son John, that's probably our dude right there. What'd he get? 5 shillings in the present currency of the bills of the old tenor of the said province, he having already received by deed of gift his full part and portion of all my estate. That's kind of nice. Peter has left us a note that says, I'm only giving him 5 shillings, but it's not because I'm a jerk. It's because I've already given him everything else it's not in this will. So I didn't disinherit him. I already gave it to him. Very nice. So now we know we're in. What happens in the beginning of books like this is that there's usually a lot of big flowery biographical data about the earliest ancestors that they can find. And so here we're getting biography, and I usually the listing of, oh, okay. I was going to say usually the children are listed after the biography, but we just hit the end of the chapter and that's not them, so we are going to have to scroll up to find. There should be a section that should look like the one we saw before that will have, and of course all of this is super interesting to come back and read because we're still in. This is lots of things known about the, and not only neat things known about the life of Peter Shumway, but this is doing a way better job of telling us where it got its information. It's referencing deeds, it's referencing and quoting out of documents. This is really useful. We can be a lot more confident in this information because it's just so rich and so sourced. Assuming that it isn't fraudulent and completely made up, which occasionally happened, but not this time. That could be a fun stream sometime. Talk about all, oh, there it is. There's our list of children. Talk about all the frauds, right? Here it is. Okay, instead of being at the end of the chapter, it's at the top of the chapter. Great. This is Peter, son of Peter. That's our guy that we know. These little bitty numbers, the generation numbers here are telling us too. So we knew from looking at John's list that he was the son of Peter, Peter, tiny little 2, who was the son of Peter, tiny little 1. This is our guy, profile number 2. And here is our John, profile number 12. The fact that it has this little plus sign next to it is a sign to tell us this guy has a fully fleshed out profile later in the book, which we knew because we came from there. We've been working backwards. However, here, for example, Mary, this is all they're going to give us about this Mary Shumway. She married Caleb Barton, and she is dead to us. Her descendants are not Shumways. We don't care. So she doesn't have a plus sign. There's not a detailed profile of her. In this case, yes, all the profiles are of the sons. Here's another daughter that's just cut off. She doesn't have her own profile. This is it for Hepzibah. That's all we're going to get for her. And so here is Peter Shumway the second, and we have his basic information. and shows that he was in Boxford and Oxford in Massachusetts and had this son John. So John was born August 10th, 1713. We had 1713 before. And so we have Peter, 1678, died 1751, question mark. Okay. So 1678. We want to try to get his date in there as quickly as possible, because that is going to help Ancestry and also our sanity keep him distinct from his father, Peter Shumway, who will have a different date. So we know he's 1678. 1751 question mark gives me pause, and I'm not going to put it in yet. And then we can just scroll right on up. Oh, look. Okay, Joseph. Oh, who's Joseph? Okay. Oh, siblings, of course. So we're going to go find dude number 1. Ding, 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 ding. Up. We want to find Peter the Second and then find Peter the First. We're getting another nice, rich biography. So it looks like we know a lot about Peter the First as well. Okay, here he is. Peter, 16. Okay, so what we want is 1635 and 1695. Born 1635. Okay, 1635. Edit. Born 1635. How cool is that? That's cool. Look how far back we got in just, we had the 2 hours we did the last stream. We did about an hour and a half's worth of this stream. We are to 1635, and it wasn't even that difficult. Right now, other branches of my family are not this easy. This is to say how much the world opened up because we found a book. Are there errors in the book? Yes. Yes, there are. But general outline of the book, pretty good. Yes, general outline of the book is pretty good. So, I missed 1695. Let's go plug in 1695. 1695. It doesn't say right there where those things occurred, so we're going to skip them. Okay. And so now for something really interesting to do, we can go read that whole bio of Peter Shumway. Don't worry, I'm not going to read it at you. Notice here, oh, this is cool. So we have Peter, who has a profile, Peter Jr., right? Peter the Second. John, who doesn't have a profile. Most likely what that means is they don't know anything about him. Samuel, who has a profile. Dorcas, most likely a daughter. That is a feminine name. That was a name that was used for female children at that time. So most likely they actually have written a profile of a daughter. Woo! And Joseph. So there's profiles here. We can look here. This is big to me. Learned from his will. So I am excited to know that we know some things about Peter Shumway and his family because he left a will that has been preserved and we have a copy of it. That means a will is, if you've learned this stuff in history class, in school or whatever, that's what we call a primary source, which is something that was created like during that person's lifetime by that person, real time, and we have a copy of it. A reproduction like this book would be a secondary source of that will. It would be a transcript or whatever. But it may mean that the original of the will exists somewhere, or a recent a copy that was done at the time. The closer we can get to the time this person was alive and maybe get our eyeballs onto a digitized copy of a document that they touched, that they wrote, the closer we can get to their time, the better chance we have of that data being something that is trustworthy about them. We have a chance. This doesn't mean that people didn't lie and stuff in their times and so forth. Now, I'm going to scroll past a bunch of stuff here about the history of the Huguenots. I've never known how to pronounce that. I'm going to have to go look that up. I'm going to have to know how to pronounce that for this stream. This is a bunch of background here because the author of this book has an opinion that is not supported by any facts. It's not disproven by any facts either, but it's not supported by any facts. They have an opinion that Peter Shumway was a French Protestant who fled and came to this country. Maybe was, maybe wasn't. What we know is that he lived among people who were all of English ancestry, not of French ancestry. And we know that there's absolutely no record of anybody in his time in the colonies saying, hey, you know, that Peter guy with the funny French accent, which is the sort of thing that they would have tended to have noted. Hey, Peter from France. Nobody in his day said he was from France. He didn't say he was from France. These people like it because Shumway sounds French. That's all they got. That's all they've got. So I don't put a lot of stock in that. I think he lived among people who came from England. It is most likely that he also came from England, but it could go either way. We don't know. What we're trying to get to is skip over all the Frenchy things. Here's some of his military service. That's based on records. They've got documents here. This is cool. You have to watch out for, sometimes in these books, they will weave back and forth between talking about history of the time that happened to other people. Like, here is a bunch of stuff about the war, paragraph about your ancestor, bunch of stuff about the war, paragraph about your ancestor. And they're making the implication, but you have to actually read and say, do they have evidence that the ancestor was involved in the war, or are they only trying to add color and say your ancestor lived at the time this war occurred? You can't assume. You have to read pretty closely and then figure out what do they have sources for and what don't they have. So there's a bunch of stuff in here that may have nothing to do with anything, right? This is talking about the nature of the French and Indian War. This is, yeah, a bunch of stuff with battles. This is where we get into this is written in 1909 by people who would not have had a high opinion of Native American persons, and so they would talk about how glorious the victory was. It was delivered to the white colonists, and yikes, right? Yikes. Oh, look, his earliest known residence was in Topsfield. Great. How did they know? I don't know, but I bet we find out. Oh, look. Peter Shumway. Okay, see, he is mentioned in town records in Topsfield on March 7th, 1681/2. Double dating. Look it up. We can talk about it. There's a thing. Anyway, March 7th. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go to Peter Shumway the First, and I'm going to say we know a thing. We know he was living in Topsfield on that date, and we can add a residence fact. The last time we did this, in the last stream, we got the residence fact added for free because we connected a census and Ancestry gave it to us. Here we are adding it by hand. And it is offering us this dual dating thing, which is a thing. Ignore it. And we know he lived in Topsfield. Now, how do I know this? When I added this in from back in Harry Eugene Hammond days, we were adding lots of facts. It would automatically connect. If I added a residence off of a census, it would connect those two with that little line that would say, this fact came from a census. I am adding this by hand. How am I going to remember where I found this fact? Well, I am going to go ahead and put Shumway book page. Page 18. Page 18. Shumway book page 18. Topsfield town record. Done. Topsfield. Town record. Pretty caveman, but it's going to be good enough because I do have a record all over the place of the existence of the Shumway book. There's only one. Sometimes a family with a common name has lots of books. So you might need to know which book. I happen to know that there's only one Shumway book. So now I have this. Sometimes I'll drop something like that in and come back and be like, grr, where's the book? Here's the other thing that I can do to keep track of book. I can add, let me do this. Page 17, I want page 18. here. So I'm looking in the web address of the book that I'm looking at. I've got archive.org. This is, I know that this is the book itself. If I just do this, it's going to take me to page 1 of the book. No, it's going to take me to the page I was on of the book. That's fine. But if I link, thank you, dog. We're almost there, man. We're almost done. We're almost done, dude. We're almost done. He really thinks it's not time yet. I said 2 hours. I told him 2 hours. Anyway, I can add that web address. Here, I'm copying it, adding it as a web link. Dink. Shumway book. And I can add that. Oh, give it a moment. There it is. So now I have a link back to it. If I want to be really good and thorough, I want to go back through everybody on the tree and add it, right? Because someday I'm going to be down there looking at John Shumway II and going, where the heck did I get this information from, right? And if I haven't added any other useful sources, I might want to know, or I might just want to know that I got it from the Shumway book. So I might want to go to Son Peter here. And remember, I chose the link to be just to the main page of the book, the first page of the book. If I go here, let's close that. Oh yeah, Oxford, Mass. Let's close that. If I click on this, it'll open another tab. Takes me to cookies. It remembers what page I was on, but it really is just taking me to the main page for this book. Over here on archive.org, by the way, I can create a free account on archive.org that will allow me to save information. I can favorite books. I can do other stuff with these books to maintain a library. That's going to be a lot more clunky and by hand than compiling it all in Ancestry, but you want to keep track of what you've found. I keep a Google spreadsheet with information about all the books that I have used in my family tree. Over the years, I have amassed a lot of them, so that was, for me, a good way of keeping track. If you are interested, that's a thing we could look at on the stream. Could be fun. I'm going to add that same link here to Peter Shumway II. Again, this is just to the main page of the book. Shumway book. There. Takes a moment. The nice thing about this, I think, we will find this out together, is I believe after my free trial of Ancestry expires and I can't get to the records anymore, I think I can still use the tree. And that means that web links like this that go out to things that are free could be even more useful than those records that I probably won't be able to see anymore. So that could be cool. And I don't know how Family Search handles those external links either. So we'll have to think about when we go to look at them, what do we learn about them? All right, I'm going to cancel. It's just, did it save and it just didn't return. There's that noisy, hungry puppy. All right. Well, I think we've kind of gotten to a good stopping point for today. Recap. We started out, let's get back and see if we can get Ancestry to load stuff up. What we started out doing, hello puppy, is we started at our home person, Mr. Harry Harvard Hammond. That was who we did last Sunday. Today we started by looking at more information about Eugene and Ella. And specifically, we were trying to get to, oh, hey, you know what? We can plug in Honeywell here. Yeah, let's save that. I think it's going to be fun to look at all the variations of his name. But we got back to Eugene Hammond. Oh, hey, you know what we know about Eugene? We now know that his middle name was Adalbert. And no, we actually don't know. Like that book said, the book said it was Adalbert Eugene. This says it's Eugene. I don't know. We're never going to know which one was first. Well, we might if we find a birth record. I take it back. If we find a birth record for him, we may know what he was named, what order they put them in at the time he was born. He did a thing that people his age do, which is that they flipped them and they used them interchangeably. We found Eugene Adalbert, and then we found the book of the Shumway family, which is his mother's family. So if we bring up Eugene as the center of our tree here, you can see that we learned a whole lot more about his lineage going back 3 more generations beyond even what we can see right here, just from finding one family book. And the important thing there is that it helps us bridge a gap where the census records don't help us get those family groupings, but the family book really did. And it gets us back to a place in New England where family records were kept a lot better. And that's going to allow us to continue to build out that tree, both very tall and very wide for that particular branch of the family, because it will be really, really, many parts of it, not all, but many parts of it are very, very well documented. So I hope you had fun today. It was great seeing all of you who stopped by in the chat, and tell your friends. We are hoping to get an average of 3 viewers per stream, which is honestly not that many. Would be fantastic to have you. Happy to do lookups and answer more detailed questions for future streams. But if you are finding this at all interesting, please do tell your friends and follow the stream so that you get notified when I go back online. My plan at the moment is to be back here Sunday morning, and sometime between now and then, I'll figure out what our theme for Sources Sunday is going to be. If you have ideas, by all means, leave them in. I believe you can leave chat messages for my channel even when I'm offline. So if there's stuff that you are starting to think that you want to see, if there's something I can cover that will more directly help you research your tree, let me know. That's why I'm doing this live, is so I can be responsive to you. If I wanted to go research this tree by myself, I assure you I know how to do that. So this is all about making the session interactive. Anyway, so thank you so much for joining us on the stream today, and we will hopefully see you all on Sunday. Bye.